Welcome to a special edition of Unibet's Inside the Octagon. I'm John Gooden with our resident expert analyst, Dan the Outlaw Hardy. The most talked about event of the year, UFC 189, is finally here. A stacked card, 2 title fights, and of course, the perfect way to end International Fight Week.
Most definitely. The biggest event on the UFC calendar. 300,000 UFC fans invading Vegas. It's quite the atmosphere.
Well, it all kicks off on July 7th. Here's a quick look at what you can expect.
UFC International Fight Week returns to Las Vegas this July 7th through the 12th. Attend special events all week long, including free concerts, pool parties, and the Ultimate 5K with Dana White. Then head on over to UFC Fan Expo for fighter signings, fan activities, the UFC Hall of Fame ceremony, seminars with your favorite fighters, and much more. It all leads to UFC 189, Mendes versus McGregor.
It's the biggest week of the year for the UFC, and we are going all out for UFC 189 with 3 Inside the Octagon episodes. As we take a look at the card, there are 2 title fights, Conor McGregor and Chad Mendes for the interim featherweight title, and Robbie Lawler defends his welterweight title against Rory McDonald. We'll look at those later in the week, but today we'll be taking a closer look at the other 3 fights that make up the main card. And we kick things off with the bout between British fan favourite Brad "One Punch" Pickett and undefeated Brazilian Thomas Almeida. So let's have a look at the facts and the stats then in this matchup. Brad Pickett with a huge amount of experience, a really exciting fighter to watch, which has helped him earn 5 post-fight performance bonuses, but he's facing a young upcomer with a perfect record, Dan.
He is, well, yeah, 35 fights is a lot of experience, but Thomas Almeida at 18-0, his confidence has got to be high right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Brad Pickett's a little bit perturbed by the fact that he's the underdog in this fight. I was speaking with him yesterday, and I think he's out to prove a bit of a point. So, Dan, we've gone to Twitter, as we normally do, and thanks to everyone that sent their questions in. We've selected one from Will Martin, so thanks, Will. How does Brad Pickett stop Thomas Almeida's beautiful flowing striking attacks in the matchup? And under the Shooter Box Academy, he really does know how to put together that Muay Thai style for mixed martial arts.
He does, and that's a great question. It's something that's got to be on Brad's mind. He has to interrupt it. He has to use his ground game. He has to use his wrestling ability. So if we have a look at Brad, one thing we know about Brad, One Punch Pickett, he's got hands, he's got good boxing, classically trained, good footwork. He moves very well, and to be honest, I think moving back up to this weight class is going to suit him because I think the weight cut took something out of his performance. Now, one thing that's often forgotten, often underestimated about Brad Pickett is his ground game, is his wrestling ability. He spends a lot of time at American Top Team, and there are a bunch of sharks at that place. They're all good grapplers. And he's got guys like Conan in his corner, Mike Brown in his corner, excellent grapplers, great knowledge. So if he can use that wrestling ability to keep interrupting Almeida's attack on the feet, keep him guessing and keep him expecting that takedown, that's going to make him hesitant, and that's going to play into Brad's game. And hopefully he can land those hands. And
he was complaining at flyweight, a couple of the guys that he was facing weren't willing to engage, but Thomas Almeida definitely will engage, and you know, he's got all the tools to do that, concussive effect.
He has. He looks like a fantastic prospect right now. And, coming out of the Shoot Box team, you know what he's about. He's aggressive, he pushes forward, and he's got great Muay Thai. And this is something we've seen in his first 2 fights in the UFC against his debut against Gorman, was very active, very aggressive, good takedown defense, but closing the distance and using good close range boxing combinations, followed up with kicks and knees. Now, if he can keep Brad at a distance, this is the game that he's going to want to employ. He doesn't want Brad to close that distance and get those heavy hands and those grips on him to drag him down to the floor.
And knees and kicks and elbows. Yeah.
Exactly. So, in this position here, if he can keep that distance and use those long-range attacks, it's going to be a good night for him. He can keep Brad at a distance and keep picking him off. And I think, to be honest, he's going to have a slight speed advantage. But you've also got to remember that Brad's been at a weight class lower, fighting guys like Ian McCall and Chico Camus, who are very, very quick.
Yeah.
So it's going to be quite a relief for Brad to have someone that's going to stand in front of him and trade. Now, whether that will work out for Almeida or not, we don't know, but that's what the fight's all about.
So Thomas Almeida welcomes Brad Pickett back to the bantamweight division. What an exciting matchup that is. So let's take a quick look at the odds for this fight. Will Almeida keep his undefeated record intact, or will Pickett be victorious in his return to the bantamweight division? Make sure you head to unibet.com for all the latest details. Time now to move on to our next fight between Icelandic sensation Gunnar Nelson and the always exciting Brandon Thatch. So let's go back to the facts and the stats for this one. Gunnar Nelson and Brandon Thatch, both highly touted prospects. That loss of Brandon Thatch to Benson Henderson was his first in 5 years. Gunnar Nelson, a wizard on the mat and a real kind of Lyoto Machida stylist, and they've both able to finish fights very fast indeed.
Yeah, very much so. Gunnar Nelson coming off his first loss as well to Rick Story. It'll be interesting to see how he takes those lessons from that fight into his game plan and improves for this fight against Thatch.
And let's take a look at Gunnar Nelson then.
Well, one thing I want to talk about with Gunnar Nelson is he has this game plan. He always likes to follow this particular route. Now, southpaw or orthodox, it's the backhand. He always has it chambered and fires it nice and straight towards his opponent.
Equal power as well.
Really good, yeah. Very, very ambidextrous when it comes to striking. And as soon as he lands a good shot, he'll crash into his opponent and drag them down to the floor. There's no secret that he wants to fight on the mat. And to be honest, as a Renzo Gracie black belt, I wouldn't blame him. If I had a good black belt like that, I'd probably want to grapple with guys as well. And you'll just see him shut people down as soon as it hits the mat. He wants heavy top position, he wants to be smothering, he wants to beat them up, and he wants to force them to move. And in the Akhmedov fight here, he allowed just enough movement for Akhmedov to roll so he could get that guillotine sunk in. And in the fight against Zach Cummings, you'll see here, selectively placed striking. He knows exactly what he's doing. Hits the body shot to pull the elbow down so he can slide the arm into the rear naked choke. It's calculated and it's measured, and that's why I like Gunnar Nelson. He's quite like a trapdoor spider. He waits until that opportunity, and then he'll pounce on it. And with 10 first-round finishes, it's going to be working for him.
Trapdoor spider, I think we've called him the Prius as well, or the Tesla. Efficient and fast as well. And he's going to need all of this because Brandon Thatch is a huge prospect, and he really does have a very attractive striking game.
Yeah, Brandon Thatch, again, is a fantastic striker, like you said. Much more well-rounded than Gunnar, in my opinion, though. Much more classically trained in kickboxing. A very rangy guy. So no secret he's going to want to try and keep this fight on the feet, try and keep Gunnar at a distance. If Gunnar manages to get this fight to the floor, then Thatcher's got to work hard to get back to his feet because it's only a matter of time before Gunnar finds that submission. Now, in his fight against Ben Henderson, he had a good showing early on. He showed good striking, good ranged attacks, very aggressive with his kickboxing, and then follows up with some great knees, as we'll see later against Paulo Thiago. He's got really nice close range knees, some nice trips from the clinch as well. But if he gets too close to Gunnar Nelson, that's playing into Gunnar's game plan. If I was in Brandon Thatcher's corner, I would say keep a distance, use your long jab, use your long kicking ability, and keep this fight on the feet and make him kickbox with you. Now let's just watch this knee against Paulo Thiago. It was really nicely timed. Look at that. Perfectly placed right in the ribs, and as soon as it hit, Paulo Thiago knew the fight was over. He couldn't get a breath, and he tapped out. Thatcher's a very dangerous guy, and Gunnar's got to be on his game for this one.
And Benson Henderson is the former lightweight champion, and he put in a really, really good showing there. So excited to see what he brings in this next contest. So let's take a look at the odds for this one. Will Gunny notch up the 10th submission of his career? Will Thatch be looking for a quick KO? As always, there are odds to be found on every round, and it's all brought to you by Unibet. Watch and bet live with Unibet, the official betting partner of the UFC. Moving on to our next fight, it's the featherweight showdown between Dennis Bermudez and Jeremy Stephens. So let's take a look at the facts and the stats for this contest, Dan. And Jeremy Stephens, you can see in his column a whole lot of experience, 7th highest total fight time in UFC history. And he can really put the lights out on his opponents too.
He can, but as you can see, Dennis Bermudez is slightly higher ranked, so there's a lot to be gained for Jeremy Stephens here. It's a big fight for him.
Now, Dennis Bermudez, he brings the heat. He can really control the pace as well, and that's something that Jeremy Stephens is going to have to look out for. I really enjoy watching Bermudez. Very good in a scramble.
He is. He's exciting. He's busy. He's constantly working. Now, one thing I will say about Jeremy Stephens is that he is the bigger guy. So for Bermudez here, if he can keep that pace high, it's going to pay dividends later in the fight. This high-energy wrestling game plan that he always comes in with, mixing it up with quite unorthodox striking, nice tight power punching, short hooking punches, and then that smothering style where he just charges forward. And you can see how strong he is. I mean, Clay Guida's, formerly a lightweight, just as Jeremy Stephens is. So, he's been in there with the bigger guys, and the pace that he put on Clay Guida, we've never seen Clay Guida slow down before. We've never seen him get worn out before. And Bermudez looked like he was the fitter, busier fighter in that fight. And if you can continue that against Jeremy Stephens, if you can take that game plan in there, stay smothering, stay busy, and wear out Jeremy Stephens, it's going to take some of those sting out the punches. So even if it does get into the later rounds, he'll get less dangerous as it goes on. Whereas Bermudez can keep this pace up, and he will look for all kinds of submissions going right into the later rounds. This beautiful submission over Clay Guida here. Fought for it really hard, and if he can take Jeremy Stephens back, I can see him getting the same kind of thing. Stephens has got to be in shape for this one because he's going to be under a lot of pressure.
And again, another exciting prospect, Jeremy Stephens. And what's not to like about a guy who wins a fight and runs face first into the octagon? I've been a fan of his for a while. A very tough test, and he'll want to get back in that win column as well. He's had some really, really difficult opponents recently. But I think it's, this new weight category for him, he's really looked to show what he's truly about. Yeah,
he has looked better since moving down from lightweight. He is the bigger, stronger guy. He's got the height and reach advantage. He's probably also going to be, slightly heavier in muscle mass as well. So if he can use that, if he can kind of slow the pace of the fight down a little bit and focus more on his power punching, that's going to help him out. Bermudez is going to be like a fly, constantly buzzing around him. And Jeremy Stephens has got to try and pin him down in some way, back him up against the fence and land some clean shots. Now, he's got decent wrestling. Whether it's enough to hang with Bermudez or not, I don't know. But this strength and athleticism alone is going to pay, is going to be really, really useful for him.
And his heart.
And his heart as well. We're talking of heart. I mean, let's look at this armbar here. Now, people always talk about my resistance to armbars, but it was nothing in comparison to this. That is locked out against Charles Oliveira.
That's the point of no return.
There is no return there, and he managed to get out of it.
He returned.
He returned. And the aggression that he shows all the way through the fight, even when he's being backed up, even when he's tired, he never backs down. He's always dangerous. So Bermudez can't go crashing into him because Jeremy Stephens can put his lights out.
Top of the pile fixture there in the main card. Another really exciting bout. So let's see what the odds are showing. Will this one go the distance, or will we see a finish? As always, there are odds to be found on every round, and it's all brought to you by Unibet. Watch and bet live with Unibet, the official betting partner of the UFC. Remember, we have 2 episodes to come previewing the title fights between Lawler and McDonald, and of course, McGregor and Mendes. So make sure you check those out. Also, you can get involved in the conversation and have your say too by tweeting your questions to us at Unibet using the hashtag InsideTheOctagon. That's it for now. Thanks for watching the first instalment. We'll see you for our next UFC 189 special.